Yes, so joining Yanni and Danielle now, it's a great pleasure to welcome our final panelists to join the conversation. And this is the reason why we've left this panel right at the end, because it really is a good one. We've got the best of the best in the industry here on the panel. It's a great pleasure to welcome Yoni Assia, CEO and founder at eToro, and Thijs Simonsen, CEO and founder at I25S, and Tagion. Danielle, it's over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I have to make a minor announcement. We were supposed to have with us today Gal Lando from Tel Aviv University Blockchain Center. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it. If anybody wants to reach out, please talk to me afterwards. We could maybe arrange Zoom. But luckily, we had Yanni who stepped in and helped us to make this panel even more interesting. So Gal was supposed to give you a bit of a background on history, money, and everything else. Now, it has been a very long day today, and I would like to make it a bit more interactive. So can we have a mic in the audience? Yes? So I will need your help a little bit, because before we start addressing this very complex matter of the future of money, we probably need to brush through some definitions. So do we have a mic? Yeah, mic in the audience. So can anybody in the audience say a word on what is fiat? Oh, Yael is volunteering here. Israeli team. Here, mic here for Yael, please. Definition of fiat.
Fiat currency, like such as US dollar, euro, is basically an IOU that the government is giving to the person who's holding either a banknote or a bank account digital fiat money. Is that okay?
It's perfect. Thank you so much. Well, when you Google it, you will find on Wikipedia the following definition: an intrinsically useless object that serves as medium of exchange. That's for the anecdote. So that's with fiat, right? So basically, we would like to address several issues today in this panel and look into the future. So as you know, the latest news is dollar is going down and Bitcoin is going up. So things are changing. So the idea is to address here today cryptocurrencies, to address central bank digital currencies that are about to be introduced and introduced in some countries already. And finally, to address stablecoins. We will look separately in what is stablecoin. We have an expert with us sitting right there, Thijs, who's specialized in all this, and he will explain to us what it is. So I'm not asking you for definition of that now. When you look into for historical references, if you, I don't know if you're familiar with Nick Szabo, one of their prominent cryptographers. When he's asked about history of money, where it all started, he gives as reference the Bible. He says the first reference for money is when you see this description of how the temple was actually constructed. There is a first mentioning of money, which is in Hebrew is also silver. Yoni will confirm. Another mention in the Bible is the cave of patriarchs, how God instructed to buy the cave, and then you see the whole notion of how it has been performed, and there's a notion of money. Now, an Israeli scholar, Dr. Idan Asher, is taking us to Ibn Khaldun. That's the second question for the audience. I think it's very relevant where we are today. So who knows who is Ibn Khaldun? Ibn Khaldun, anyone? Yes, no? All right, so Ibn Khaldun was an Islamic scholar, and he wrote a work called Muqaddimah. I'm not sure if I pronounced right. I apologize for Arabic speakers here. So he says that money is the tool to meet human needs. So he explained the whole concept of multidimensional economy. So now I would like to ask our guests to react on what is money, what is the reference. And I have invited 3 different people to be on this panel because we would like to address 3 different issues. So I would like to ask Yanni to address everything related to cryptocurrencies. I'll ask Yoni to address, he's the institutional on the panel, to address digital currencies, central bank digital currencies. And as we said, to we'll address stablecoins. So Yanni, I think it's fair to say about you that you don't hold fiat. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I need to use sometimes fiat. There's almost no way around this, but yeah, I don't really have a personal bank account, or at least I was not using it in the past couple of years.
So how do you describe cryptocurrency? What do you see it as a store of value? What is it for you? You can take Bitcoin as reference.
It's the privatization of money. Same way how the internet essentially made it possible that knowledge or information is shared and created and collaborated online. Blockchains and cryptocurrencies essentially enable that value is transferred all around the internet freely, and as well as also issued freely, meaning everybody can create a cryptocurrency and start working on the adoption, and this way make it possible to do more transactions for the people, or generally make more economic interaction possible. And it's essentially the next logical step from essentially very monopolized value exchange systems to diverse landscape of currencies, global currencies. And I think it's also safe to say that Bitcoin is the first truly global currency, not just cryptocurrency.
So what do you think about the adoption as we stay today? Because we know the surge of Bitcoin, but what do you think about the wide adoption of cryptocurrencies?
Well, we haven't seen it wide adoption of cryptocurrencies, but I think if you ask an American, I just heard this a couple of days ago, that's over 2/3 of the Americans already have heard the word Bitcoin, which is already quite amazing, I would say. And I mean, how long did it take to get mobile phones mainstream? Now when I check in or when I enter Dubai, I need to download an app. What if I don't have a mobile phone? Can't I enter Dubai? I don't know, meaning it will take some time, but I think we are on the brink of getting to mainstream adoption, and I think the world will look really different in 5 years from now, probably in a way we can't really imagine it.
I was going to ask you for the timeline. Thank you so much. So Yoni, to you.
So I'll try to imagine how it happens in 10 years, but I like to compare Bitcoin to gold and as digital gold, and you talked a bit about the history of money, and the interesting story of gold is that before fiat, before gold, there was commodity backed money, and basically there wasn't really barter, but there were a lot of villages that were disconnected. Each of them had basically their own local commodity, whether it's rice or potatoes or any local commodity, which helped people understand how to exchange things. So your chicken was worth 10 potatoes, his cow was worth 50 potatoes, and that's how people exchanged. Then about 5,000 years ago, gold was what was necessary in order to connect all of the villages, originally in different places and eventually globally. So gold on ships traveling around the world is what really connected the world to the world that we know it today. But then a process happened which those villages became countries. Those countries had their own local currencies. That local currency was for a significant part of time actually tied to gold and silver. And then in 71, of course, it was depegged, which, by the way, created a lot of great things, not only bad things. So leverage, loans, the entire leveraging of the financial system, derivatives, all of that was created by the depegging of fiat money and commodity-backed money. And I think Bitcoin represents what the internet represents, basically one big world of 7 billion people that don't necessarily need only the local currency to communicate with one another, but need a language to communicate value with one another. And I think that's where we're heading. So I've been a fintech entrepreneur since 2006, and I've seen how financial institutions work. And the fact is, finance today is still, while it might look digital to us, it's actually analog on the back end. Everything still settles on T+1 and T+2, and all the systems are disconnected, and nobody really can understand the map of where all the money is. And I think that's the beauty of Bitcoin and of blockchain. It enables these systems to connect with one another, to connect different people from different countries, different financial institutions to this one big financial system. Of course, there are going to be many blockchains in the future, but I think it's really about real-time clearing and settlement, real-time quotes, real-time exchange of services and goods around the world. And as a fintech entrepreneur, where we'll have this year probably $2 trillion of value, $2 trillion of volume in eToro this year, we can really see how the system currently is disconnected, all the systems, all the parts of the system, and how potentially within, by the way, I think it's going to take a bit more than 5 years. So gold took a couple of thousand, so hopefully not a couple of thousand, but 10 to 20 years, we're simply going to see the entire financial services industry eventually connected to public and private blockchains to enable that free exchange and frictionless exchange of value worldwide.
Okay, Yoni, before I ask you to put the institutional hat and tell us about central bank digital currency, I would like to remind you the story that Yanni told us recently in a previous discussion about colored coins. So that's the connection between Yanni and Yoni, because Yoni incubated colored coins, and Vitalik had his first internship with me, right? So
Yeah,
that's
that was my first usage of Bitcoin. We bought Bitcoin in 2011 for eToro at $5. I really should have bought more.
Wow.
But and the way we used Bitcoin in eToro, so we were really impressed by the technology, started buying Bitcoin and trading Bitcoin, is actually to sell programmers, to basically pay programmers our Bitcoins to do different tasks for us online. And Vitalik was one of the people who worked on the Colored Coins project, eventually realizing that the Bitcoin protocol wasn't good enough for tokenization. We tried to do stable coins. USD coin and Euro coin actually developed in gold coin on the Bitcoin network in 2012, but that was quite premature. And eventually, to some extent, he was right, because we needed higher speeds and atomic swaps between tokens for basically everything we saw in the ICO world to materialize in smart contracts. But I think a lot of Bitcoin maximalists still want to see that smart contract vision potentially happening on the Bitcoin network.
Right. So now the institutional had one word on CBDC, and I would like to give you, if I may, printing money. I think many people hear about printing money. If you can connect that.
Sure.
You can.
So first of all, CBDC is inevitable. So digitization of any industry, if you take a lot of tech entrepreneurs in '99, they would say the internet was inevitable, and then other people would say no, still newspapers have all that power and TV channels, and now we have Google and Facebook and all the, basically is the largest media companies around the world. I think, again, if you think about digital transformation for millennials, it's quite obvious that it's an inevitable process. Of course, money is going to be digital. And of course, governments and central banks are going to digitize money so they can track it better, so they can print it better. And then I will relate to the printing. Right now, printing of money is not very efficient, and it loses a lot of friction within the banking system. So when governments try to do stimulus, they give basically leverage to banks. It's a very complex and very local system. In theory, if every single person in a country had his ID connected to a digital wallet, basically the government could simply say, hey, I'll take the poor, those who don't have a lot of money in their digital wallet, let's give them some money to stimulate the economy, right? They don't need to give it to the rich, which is what's happening now. They're giving it to the banks. So I think, first of all, we understand now that something is changing because of Corona, and that the role of government of stimulating the economy is basically necessary because of COVID in our case, but I think that truth is going to stay with us, very similar to how in '29 Keynesian economics basically started. We see governments more involved, not less involved, in the printing of fiat money. And I think that excess printing of money is what's causing Bitcoin to rise in value. Because basically when they print more fiat money at unprecedented rates around the world, and interest rate is zero, and by the way, it's going to be very hard to increase interest rates because suddenly debt of countries is becoming so big that if they increase the interest rate, it'll actually eat their entire GDP. So even if you look at this 5 and 10 years, you understand low interest rates are here to stay because of the increasing debt of governments also related to the increased basically stimulus that they have to do now because of COVID. And if you connect to that the fact that inequality is actually rising, but governments understand that they need to actually contain inequality or improve equality, then you understand digital currencies and central bank digital currencies may have a very big role in how governments are basically eventually distributing money. And today, all of that distribution goes through a very analog system through the banks. In the future, they'll be able to actually define who gets what and why, and that potentially in some cases is a scary future, and potentially in some cases is a great euphoria. But I think we'll definitely see very interesting tools over the next 10 and 20 years of central banks using digital money in order to stimulate economies in different ways. And again, that very much relates to what we're seeing now, basically with the devaluation of fiat money, which, by the way, has always been the case. So a pound, a British pound, was actually a pound of silver, which went down by 99.6 or 7% over the past 318 years. So currencies do have a tendency over time to actually lose their value. Now this is being accelerated, and suddenly there is an alternative. In the past, people would say cash is king, and they actually meant dollar is king. And I think now, gradually, Bitcoin is becoming king.
Thank you so much for the glass half full. That was a good one. I mean, you outlined a very interesting point of how it can be helpful for the economy. So, Tus, to you, basically, I need your help here, because one thing we haven't defined is what is stablecoin. So anybody here who's active in cryptocurrency would think that stablecoin is where you take the rest between your positions when you do trading, but there's more to stablecoin, and Tus has a very strong position against the peg. So here you go.
Yeah, I think we need to take one step back again and say what is a monetary system. That's not very interesting for normal people. It's like pressure to lungs and to our lives. It's something we have, but we don't really care about it as long as we have it. And it's like a monetary system, our monetary society is like vital and very powerful. So yeah, and that's why what is stable coins then? Now when we are trying to use, for example, bitcoins or other altcoins in stores, they are very volatile. They go up and down. So people think it's hard to trust them and use them for commercial purposes. But then a monetary system itself will never be stable. It doesn't make sense, because all monetary systems are basically you print some money, you issue them, then basically you control the transactions. That's it. Or you can also actually burn money if there's too many. It doesn't happen that often though, but it is possible. So what is then stable currencies? I don't think they exist. So it's like a relation between currencies. But then what is it then we should be looking for here in crypto, or maybe in the new central banks, what they do? I think it's like, so fiat is a social contract in society, and there is basically a lot more to it. It can be a fiat who issues the money and guarantees the money, and that could be an authority. It could also basically be a local community. It just needs to be somebody that people trust, or a community that people trust. And we should very much care about how to rebuild these trust foundations, because then over time it will take a long time, because history of money takes a lot of time. So it's actually not so action power packed. It's pretty boring, steady state. But we need to build trust in these systems and slow adoption. And then we need to look into, we have seen different generations of cryptocurrency trying to actually create stable currencies. We started with the USDTs, then we had like some asset-backed synthetic coins where you like put a lot of assets into a pool. But then again, you still have a central entity you need to trust. Though it's not only like pegged to, for example, USD. But then we moved ahead to, for example, DAI. And that's starting to become very interesting, because then we don't have a central authority actually controlling the coin. But still, I guess it's like 50 or 60% still in practice pegged to the USD now, or something like this. So it's still not independent, and you need an and a monetary system to be independent to work and getting traction over time. And then we are starting to see new projects within crypto that are starting to look at how can you actually create algorithms that are not controlled by an oracle or central authority that then controls the monetary supply, that can then create like a stable base over time. But that will take years. It's not something that will happen overnight because people need to
This is
trust
something
it.
you are working on, correct?
Yeah, that's what we have been working on in the Tagion project, because we thought governance is one of the key elements to make monetary systems succeed. Basically, we just want to make people trust it and use it. It's like an ongoing cycle. It's like getting the flywheel bigger and bigger and getting into a steady pace. That's basically what it's all about. I don't think it's that important that we actually peg it to something. It's just important that money is efficient in the actual economies it works in. So we need to have enough money, but not too much, enough money to actually have support an efficient economy, and not like,
Yoni wants to answer.
I just want to add something, which is really why I'm so attracted to the space of digital currencies and the future of money. Is this is the first time, I think maybe in 100 years, if not more, you have very, very smart people thinking about redefining money and using technology to redefine money. And what's interesting is that I met several central banks, and within those central banks, I actually always ask the question when I meet them, I ask, how many computer scientists do you have on the board of the central bank or in the management of the central bank? And the answer is usually zero. And the thing is, it's very different. So I studied both computer sciences and economics, and it's a very different way to think about things when you think about solving problems using computer sciences. And what 10 economists can do within 20 years of really thinking and being really, really smart and analyzing things, sometimes can be one programmer within half an hour, and he develops it and he tests it and he knows how it works. And it's all around how do you build these systems that basically create, the value of money. And if you think about it, there are small countries with 50,000 people in a country who have their own currency, and a central bank who tries to usually then choose this simple way of, let's peg just our currency to the dollar. And there are some who create a lot of different algorithms. And again, very smart economists in central banks developed a lot of systems and methods. A lot of them failed, which is why the average life cycle of a fiat currency is 30 years and not more. But I think the fact that suddenly now you can have 50,000 people who are a community on the internet testing these things and actually creating that value, which is, I think, what a lot of these cryptocurrencies are, is just fascinating, because it's something that in the past only a country could do. So you have limited amount of experiments. You basically had 300 to 400 experiments in the history of our world of creating currencies in the past 100 years. And now within the crypto economy, suddenly there has been, I think, 4,000 experiments of creating new types of money. And of course, 80% of them or 90% will fail. But that level of experimentation usually creates eventually something which is bigger and better and unimaginable to us today.
Oh, that's amazing. Guys, I would like, probably we have to wrap it up, right, by the time. So can I ask just 1 minute question for everyone, like a blitz? So, let's start with you. Have you heard of the last statement of Christine Lagarde about the stable coins? What do you think is going to happen, regulation-wise? Just
I read a statement from ECB and another one yesterday, a paper also made with some central banks, and of course they are like only seeing they are like blindfolded, I guess. So they're trying to analyze new innovations from their own angle and protect their own system. And Christine Lagarde is not like very fond of cryptos or any.
She was kind of supportive of Bitcoin in the beginning, but then
Yeah, but then it became a real threat, I guess, and then she become like the opposite, I guess. And she's also like pushing central bank digital currencies, of course.
Her own agenda. Yoni, for you one, what do you think are the odds that Steven Mnuchin will pass this KYC on Bitcoin bill?
What, Stable Act, or is it, I think there's a chance we're gonna see more scrutiny of regulation around basically cryptocurrencies. I think again every country will have their own laws as they have today. I think anti-money laundering and know your customer are very important to safeguard, but on the other hand are sort of problems that don't really have solutions, especially not digital solutions.
Overdoing it.
Needs to change, and we can only hope that regulators will basically adopt innovation and make sure that the regulations will not stop that innovation to actually manifest into new technologies.
Amen to that. Amen. So Yanni, for you, have you heard what Ray Dalio said about Bitcoin?
I remember something, but please remind me.
Well, never mind.
He asked people to explain to him
That's
yeah,
fine. Yeah.
why Bitcoin actually works, and that explained that eventually, if it succeeds, the governments will kill it. So he
Ban
doesn't.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add something here to the theory of currencies. There's a theory that that currencies got created by the palace in order to let people pay their tax. So if you look at this, there's a monopoly of violence by the state, and the state is using this monopoly in order to collect the tax, as well as it's printing money, which is another form of hidden taxation. So I'm very critical of what the central banksters are doing with their money politics or supply or printing. It's I would say it's quite dangerous if the power centralizes so much. There have been so many examples in history where this power corrupts completely, and I hope we're not gonna end there. I hope that there will be a silent or non-violent transition from fiat to real cryptocurrencies, currencies from the people, for the people, and not anymore currencies from a elite group of people who nobody really knows, forcing it on the people with violence. I hope this time is going to be soon over, and I'm pretty sure that in 100 years from now we look back to this time and think, oh wow, we were so backwards back then. Like we're looking now backwards 100 years ago when almost nobody is able to read and write, and today it's very normal that people can read and write. And in 100 years from now, it will be very normal to know about a private key and to keep it safe and to do probably other more fancy things even with technology.
We hope for the brighter future. Well, I hope that we have shared some different opinions with you today, so you know your tools and you will be able to use them wisely. Thank you so much for all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the organizing for hosting us.
Well, what an incredible session there. Our final panel of the day. Thank you so much, gentlemen. A really, really interesting and insightful session.